Welcome to another captivating episode of Raw Momversations,
where fearless moms and experts unite to explore alternative practices. Hey there, I'm Allie.
And I'm Melania. Our mission is to empower your one-of-a-kind parenting journey. Join us as we explore unconventional birthing and parenting methods.
Get ready for inspiration, authentic stories, and unwavering family love.
Together, we're rewriting our rules of parenting one bold step at a time.
So without further ado, let's kick off this empowering momversation.
Raw Momversations, where fearless motherhood leads the way. Okay, so today we're excited to have Stephanie Peck, who won our recent contest. For those of you who don't know, Steph won a mommy makeover, which included a luxury hair makeover by Maine by TK, 13 spray tans valued at $450 by Tan Montreal, and we have the absolute pleasure of having her as our special guest. She's a mom of 3 and could not be more deserving of winning this contest. When we connected with Steph, it felt like a match made in heaven. We were so lucky to get to showcase her today and dive into her birth stories that align so perfectly with our podcast. Welcome, Steph.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
We're so excited. I guess when you followed us with the contest and then we saw that a mutual, account we're following is Sage Parent, which is the birthing center with the midwives. Yeah. We looked at each other and we're like, oh my God, this is so perfect. Like that means she's right up our alley.
Yeah, honestly, it's such a pleasure. It's an honor to be here. Super excited. And yeah, definitely when I was listening to more of your podcast, it definitely aligns with some of our parenting choices. And my third birth was at the birthing center. So
amazing. So tell us, you have 3. How old are they?
I have 3, 6, 3, and 5 months.
Wow. Boys, girls?
Girl, boy, girl.
Girl, boy, girl.
Girl, boy, girl.
Yeah. That's
Sorry.
it.
I was thinking about my first. Well, so before we dive into it, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So mom of 3. So currently on mat leave with my third. Been married to my college sweetheart. Just celebrated our 11-year anniversary this weekend.
Wow, congrats.
Thank you. And I live in the West Island, grew up here. We came back during the pandemic and just happy to be here. And, through 3 birth experiences now, I've kind of become passionate about natural birth and informing, myself as much as possible. And so it's really exciting to be here.
So you said your third one was at the birthing center, but so let's start with your first. Let's go through your births and the little birth story because everyone loves a good birth story.
Did you already have this kind of a mindset with your first birth?
Yes, I would say. So my first was in the hospital. I was at the Glen. I was followed at a thyroid nodule. So I was followed more high risk, completely 180 from what my mom did. She had 2, I would say traumatic birth experiences, needed transfusion. My brother, whole break the clavicle to get him out, the stress situation. That definitely wasn't the most encouraging, assuring situation to have heard growing up, and we were big babies. But I kind of, the more I informed myself and read up on it, I'm definitely a very analytical person. I had a doula with all 3 of my births. The more I read up on it, the more I kind of wanted to just do this naturally as much as possible. I was very lucky at the hospital setting to have respected vaginal births, which is, unheard of, unfortunately, in this thing, and especially at a high risk center where they're no epidural, that's really not the norm.
Right.
But I just kind of researched it, and the more I kind of wanted to take ownership as much as possible of that experience and prepare. And I was lucky that I had a, very smooth pregnancy. So this was in 2017 and went into labor naturally right before 40 weeks. I remember my last appointment. This was a Friday morning. The doctor, she gave me a check, cervical check, and, things were starting to progress. And she's like, I don't think you're making it till your next appointment. You're looking ripe. Literally that evening, contractions started, and I remember, texting my doula, and she's like, well, why don't you go in the bath and see if they continue. Not, it's maybe not quite active labor just yet. And they continued during the bath. So it was like, okay, well, this is a matter of time. Try to relax and try to rest as much as possible. Like things are happening. And in the middle of the night, we tried to, we were watching Friends. I'm on the birth ball, like bouncing, moving around. And then we like, okay, let's go to bed. And it was funny because that, the dog walker came to get the dog and kind of things were happening. And we go to bed. My husband's like snoring next to me. And at one point at 1 a.m., I'm like, okay, I need to like sit up or something. Like I can't do these lying down anymore. And then my water breaks, sort of, like not a huge like puddle, but a nice gush. And so I wake up my husband, and then he's like in panic. I don't want to say panic mode, but he's like, go. He's like, okay, packing things. He's running all over the place. And like, I'm like trying to work through them. And like my contractions came like pretty fast and furious really quickly. I just remember like the scene of like, he's like almost freaking out more than I am,
Yeah.
So we get in the car and like right away start going like the whole drive. That's all I'm doing. And even to this day, when like this noise happens, he just looks at me and like laughs.
Is this a calming technique?
Honestly,
I think, yeah, like, a coping technique. But see, I didn't use it for the other two. So,
but question, so, because you seem to have had like a really like confident vibe about like up until this point, did you do a lot of preparation with the doula before going into labor that just made you feel so kind of at ease or prepared with this?
Definitely. So we had the at-home like one-on-one birthing classes.
Okay.
I think some of your other guests, or even Ali, when you've spoken about like birth, like just informing yourself of just like so many stories that I hear, unfortunately, of people who like show up at the hospital just like that. And like, they don't know like, the stages of labor and like what to look out for when you need to go, or just kind of giving ownership of the process to somebody else when this first and foremost in a normal circumstance should be yours,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So definitely felt like more in control and confident. And, she really helped prepare us, and she was, a super positive presence. And I recommend to all my friends to have a doula because, the doctors they think, they're obviously their priority is you, but also mostly the baby. And she's there to be, your advocate and your first and foremost support system, help the husband, the dad, or the partner throughout that for you. So that definitely was a game changer for me. And even once I got to the hospital, he joined rather quickly and was like really clutch and like, the pressure points and keeping me calm. And again, the first time you don't necessarily know what to expect. And there were definitely points where I got in my head and I'm like, I can't do this. And you're like, okay. So when I got in, I think I was about 5 centimeters. Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay, if next check I'm at 7 or more, I'm okay. But then, I was only at a 6 and then I got discouraged. And then it kind of really, you get in your own head and it's like, you really need to stay moment, zone one at a time, contraction at a time. If not, it can just spiral and you lose a little bit of control there. So
would you find that helped you? Because when Ali was at the birthing center, they didn't do any checks. And I remember you wanted to kind of have a number to have an idea.
I never had a cervical check during my second pregnancy. Right. Ever. I did my own like GBS swab.
No, but I mean like how she's there and with the dilation.
So they kind of avoid doing it because just like Steph said, you get into your head and then you spiral real quickly. Right. And like, quite frankly, the number doesn't mean anything because you can go from like 2 centimeters to 10 in like 10 hours or 10 minutes. Like that's how fast and the range of, the process. There's no, so I just wanted to know, like, for fun, almost. Like, I knew the baby was coming, but I was like, can you just give me, like, a heads up? Like, am I preparing for, like, worse contractions, or am I, like, good and we're almost at the finish line? And when she checked me, she's like, yeah, baby's coming. Let's go.
Definitely. That's like, such a tip that I, share is, like, they check you if you decide to be checked. That's the picture at that point in time. It means nothing.
It means nothing.
It means nothing about how much longer it's going to last. or, how fast you're going to get to the next step. It really doesn't. It's the picture in time. So
Yeah.
that was definitely a huge learning for me from that first experience.
And you hadn't tested positive for GBS, right?
No, in all three situations.
What you and I had.
Group B strep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at the hospital, did they let you walk around, or did they kind of strap you to the bed with, the monitors, or what were your wishes?
They let me, honestly, I was mobile. I didn't even have an IV hookup either of the times at the hospital. I was laboring on all fours. I brought my huge ball.
Nice.
Like, just remember also the scene of it's 1, 2 in the morning, and my husband's pushing me in the chair. He's holding the bags. I have one little thing. He has the ball between him and the wheelchair trying to push me. I so wish we could have the hospital security camera footage of this. He's pushing me, and then I'm impatient. I'm like, what are you doing? You're going. And he's like, well, I'm trying to hold everything. I stand up, my water breaks, all my shoes. So then finally I grabbed a few more things, and then we kind of got on our way, but it was fine. So they let me move. It was part of my birth plan. And it was honestly a very positive, respected birth. The doctor, when he came in, it wasn't my OB. I remember him hanging by the door and kind of assessing the situation. It came time to push. I was like, how would you like to push?
Really?
And I was like, yeah. And I was like, obviously when you do the classes, you learn about different positions to push, and how, it's not optimal to be necessarily on your back unless you're comfortable like that. And funnily enough, it's my third, I did end up pushing on my back. But the first two, I pushed on all fours, tried on my back, and I was like, this is super uncomfortable. Not happening. Ended up having a cervical lip, again with all three.
A cervical lip?
So part of the cervix kind of is in the way and kind of gets inflamed a little bit, and sometimes you can manage it without kind of works around it, but sometimes you need a little bit of assistance to kind of get it out of the way. In my situation, needed a little bit of help. I don't know if it's based on how my uterus is, or I don't know, but and pushed for 45 minutes. I remember being like, okay, this is really tough. The pushing part is definitely tough physically, but the pressure and the pain, you're able to work through it and channel it to kind of push, and it's not as painful as the transition, for example, in my case.
Right.
And yeah, she was born. So my first, we didn't know the gender. So
cool.
Baby came out, and it's so funny because they're a little bit swollen, right? So I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, it's a boy. No, wait a second. It's missing something. It's a girl. And so that's love surprises personally. So that was really, really special. Yeah, just really, really fun experience, honestly.
Did you have a name for a girl picked out and a boy picked out just in case? Or were you when the baby comes, we'll figure it out?
We had for both. Actually, up until the day before, front runner for a girl was different. And then when she came out, I was like, hi, Amelia. And it was just, so that's her name.
Oh, it's so sweet.
That's just kind of felt meant to be. And yeah.
Oh, so fun.
Yeah.
Okay. So baby number 2, or unless you want to.
No. That was great. That was amazing. I have goosebumps every time it gets to the climax. I'm like everyone's birth story, but I just want to make sure because the thing is not moving. That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Baby number 2.
Baby number 2. So baby number 2 was in COVID. I got pregnant. I have 2 October babies. My first 2 are October.
Okay.
So I got pregnant right before COVID kind of really hit.
Okay.
And so obviously the whole experience with the hospital, follow-ups and stuff was different, alone for most, if not all of them. Definitely a little bit of stress with what was going on. And I remember I would change out of all my clothes after and take a shower right away after my appointments. It was a little bit of definitely a different experience. Still positive overall. So in this case, water broke first with my son, and my son was born at 40 plus 3. So the whole experience of the check-ins at the end of is baby here yet? Oh, So I again went into labor kind of in the middle of the night, similar to my daughter, as the night before my dad had picked up my daughter. And we were like, oh, we'll relax. We'll be able to sleep in, kind of. Yeah, no, he had other plans. But in the middle of the night, I rolled over and felt a pop and gush of water. And similar situation, nudged my husband awake. He was a little bit more calm and collected this time. This time the contractions were they weren't as like fast and furious. So it was a little bit slower to get into. We're picking up and we were relaxed. We were laughing. I took a shower, texted my doula. Again, in 2020, she was only there virtually for me during my birth. So kind of, okay, well, get ready slowly. You can stay at home.
Don't rush to the hospital.
That's it. Hindsight, I think I, could have waited even longer, but we get there and then they, in the check-in, it's like, have you had any symptoms in the last couple of weeks? And my husband had like a sore throat because my daughter had some sort of virus. I was okay, thankfully, to minimize contact. We get checked in. It's like 6 a.m. And they're like, okay, make your way to triage. There's an emergency C-section, so it might be a while. So we relaxed. I napped a little. Again, contractions were really like, there is such a thing of you're in a safe birth environment, how things can progress more smoothly.
Yes.
And at time, my contractions kind of stalled while we were waiting. And then the shift change happens in the morning. And then I think the head nurse comes in and she's like, you're not going to be able to stay. Like, I'm sorry, what? And, like, yeah, you've had symptoms. And remember, like then throat wasn't quite a symptom of COVID, or it wasn't one of the key ones, right? Anyway, all that to say, back and forth. And he's like, I'm going to have to get security. Like, I'm not leaving my wife alone. Like, this is ridiculous. I'm fine. This was like days ago. All that to say that, things calmed down, but I was able to stay. I remember at that point, I'm like, okay, these contractions are never going to start back up if like this is the situation. Things calmed down. We're like, listen, your water did break. I was at a 4, I think at that point. They checked me. Baby was still high, but they're like, they start quickly. Things don't start picking up, then we're going to have to give you some Pitocin. I was like, okay, well, give me a chance. Like, let's, see how things go, regroup in a couple hours. By then, I think it was after 9. By the time they switched us rooms, it was around 11. I was on the phone with my doula, tried some nipple stimulation. Doula was really good at like distracting me and getting me to calm down and like not just think about, the baby and the birth. And my contractions started back up by themselves. By the time I moved on to the delivery suite or room, same doctor who was there for my first birth, it was him again. So that was a nice surprise. And checked me and I was like at a 6 and a 7. Very much in control, really good. And then remember that the staff that had like checked me initially was like, okay, this might happen like before our shift change, again, did my transition in the shower, which I felt really, 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 really good. I was standing up, like holding the bar in the shower with the hot water.
Yeah.
It's my back. And that felt really, really nice. And definitely.
So, because I didn't experience that because with my first, I had a epidural, but when like, what does it mean to feel the transition? Like, what does that actually mean?
Oh, you'll know.
Yeah.
You'll know.
But like, do you know it's coming or it just starts to happen and you're like, oh, or like, do you kind of feel it's coming?
It's like the pressure.
The pressure definitely builds up. For me, the contractions were coming faster and faster. And at the end, when I was almost fully dilated, I need to be checked. My body was like naturally bearing down. And like they see just instinctually the noises change a little. And even in between contractions, you still get your breaks and your relief. One of the I think it's the Positive Birth Co. that I did one of the classes, kind of refresh, and she explained it as like green light, yellow light, red light. Between your contractions, you're at a green, and then it maybe goes up to a yellow or red each contraction, each peak, and then it calms back down, and then but it gets a little bit harder to calm back down and stay like in your zone, especially at the transition. And that's when like the breathing really helps. And for all my births, I did some affirmations that I wrote on like cards and so my husband would like try to repeat some of the key ones for me, and like just like the breathing. I remember like, so there were no like, is it cow noise or that didn't happen this time. Like each breath, I would take a few deep breaths, and then like by then the contraction kind of subsided. But it's just, yeah, like Ali said, it's really just instinctual. It kind of happens, and then I knew. So then the nurse starts going, okay, let's make our way out of the shower towards the bed. And then like they were coming fast and furious at that point. And then my husband's like, yeah, they're, waiting for you a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, they can wait, coming. And side note, I got a COVID test. Obviously they had to give me a COVID test. And that was the whole thing with my husband was, he was like, give me a COVID test. Like, I'm fine. And they're like, we can only do it for the mom. Anyway, they chose 7 centimeters was when I got my COVID test. So that was fun.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It ended up being checked again because I was, I felt fully dilated, and it is like, protocol and, hindsight, my last, I didn't really get any except once, but me again, I had a cervical lip. So that was, managed, I guess we should say. And then when it came time to push, I remember there was a nurse that came in looking for the doctor. And she's like, doctor, we need you for a C-section. And he's like, okay, well, he's pushing here, so he's going to have to wait. Like the nurse just like stood there in the entrance of the room. And I was kind of like, I felt a little like less in control, like a little less like in my space, a little bit rushed, like I felt like I had pressure to like push this baby out as soon as possible because somebody was like standing right there. So still ended up, pushing him in 3 pushes, he was out. It was much faster than first. And I tried like different positions, and what felt best was like on all fours. And then he came out like crying, screaming right away. And that was just, again, super special.
I'm like so proud of you for getting that done physiologically.
Yeah, first of all, that's like during the start of COVID, and it's like a stressful experience.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine the atmosphere in the hospital itself. So
you gave birth in COVID too, right?
We did.
Yeah.
I got pregnant at the very start of like when lockdown happened.
Your husband had to get a pass to leave.
Yeah. When I was giving birth, he needed one of those papers that gave him the right to be on the road after 8:00.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's right. The curfews.
Yeah. Because we had to go to...
I had to push with a mask.
Yeah. They let me put mine down because I was like, this is not happening. Like I need to...
I refused.
Funny. I had one, and then they I was on all fours, right? I'm not even facing them. And I was like, can I like take it off now? And then they're like, no, it's best you don't, probably because of the whole like symptom thing. Honestly, it didn't last very long. So it didn't end up bothering me as like, you would think. Definitely not fair to, have to push under those circumstances.
What's really interesting is Dr. Stu. We love him. It's a podcast, a birthing podcast that we listen to.
Yeah.
Do you know him? Dr. Stuart Fishman? Okay. So I don't know if you've ever heard him talk about like animals who are giving birth and let's say they feel endangered or a threat or there's like a lion coming, or they will actually stop labor.
Yeah.
Hold on to that baby.
Yeah.
Clench, walk away or go to a safer place. And then when the animal feels calm again, the labor will reactivate and they'll, continue with the birth. And 100%. It's so funny how you were at the hospital, you felt threatened, because they're saying your husband can't be there. And now your body is saying, oh my God, stop labor. And then once you felt comfortable again, your body naturally went in without Pitocin,
Exactly.
They're very quick to...
That actually gives me confidence because like my biggest fear is when you get to that stressful point and then the getting over that hump and beyond.
Yeah.
And you're just showing me that like when there's a will, there is a way.
Definitely. Yeah. Recenter, kind of maybe distance yourself from like the noise and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad it worked out like that.
So what made you switch to a birthing center with your third?
Oh, because of how things kind of ended. And then I remember like postpartum, because we were treated like we had the plague, and they had like a sign, like COVID protocol, like above our room. And so they had to like gown and everything before coming to see me postpartum. And I remember once I didn't need much. I think I was wanting like water or something. And then when I like buzzed somebody and then I looked down and you know how they give you the pads and the ice?
Yeah.
Relief. And then I looked down and it looked like I had like a huge puddle of blood and I'm like freaking out. But it turned out like it was like the water melting, right? That made it seem like it was much more than it was. But then like somebody came and by the time she got to my room, I was like, okay, I need a new PK. Like this is like full. She gave me so much attitude because she's like, she came in and I was like, oh, sorry, can I get like another PK? I have a lot of like blood here. And she's like, me attitude because she had to go out, like regown and reuse new protective equipment to come back in. And I was like, seriously? Like I gave birth like hours ago, you know? Again, like I said, super positive overall, but still certain things that just felt a little not as great as they could have, you know? And I really wanted to feel a little bit more empowered and how, you know, my birth went for my third baby. We knew this was our last. And the birthing center is like 5 minutes from my house. So that also helps because, you know, when you have two other kids, the logistics of to manage and have somebody watch them while you're, you know, going into labor. So I just really wanted to but naturally again. And because I had such a good experience in the water the first time, I was like, okay, maybe, you know, somewhere where there's a tub is an option. That would be nice. Honestly, it's, you know, you've touched upon it a few times, but it's such an empowering experience, personal, not a number as much as in a hospital setting. And your appointments are like an hour plus long. There's no rush. There's like nobody in the waiting room. Every time I'd go for an appointment, maybe one person, as opposed to the hospital where there was like
hundreds.
Yeah. And you're waiting a long time and you don't have much of a chance to have conversation and connection with your provider. And just in terms of like empathy and communication and just the information that they, you know, the why we're doing this. Here's the test that's offered to you. This is why we do it. You can do this, or these are the implications or the risks or the concerns if you choose not to. So definitely feel more in control. Even my daughter came to a couple of my appointments. So that was super special.
Yeah, that's
have
beautiful.
her be with me. I think she came to two, I think. One during Christmas time. And then she came like, I was due spring break. So she was home and came to that one too. So that was really special.
And so because you live in the West Island, you were at the Lac St. Louis one, like
Yeah.
Ali?
Yes.
Okay. Did you guys have the same midwife?
I don't think so. Who was
No,
your Trista? Was your?
So, and then there was a student midwife, Max, who was in charge of my care.
Yeah. So if you were around Christmas, I was around there because I gave birth on Christmas Eve.
Yes, probably that week. I remember before Christmas, I think the 23rd or something, I had a checkup.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. And so this baby, I don't know, you were going to say?
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so my third was due, that's it. She was due March 5th. Yeah, March 5th. And thought she would be born early. Everybody thought she would be born early. She ended up being born 41 plus 5. And so that was an experience in itself. Definitely, you know, mentally, emotionally, really draining. I had another.
You have two kids at home.
Two
on
kids
top
at
of that.
home.
Yeah.
My daughter, you know, this was the time where there was the strike. So my daughter was home for like November, December. Anyway, I'm losing my train of thought. Yeah, so so I, again, in all of the like prenatal appointments, a little bit of like, hey, what do you hope for in your birth? What would you like? You know, what room would you like? What are your objectives? And I was always like, you know, obviously you want to do this as naturally as possible. You know, take charge. I kind of knew what I didn't want to recreate, right? I wanted to be a little bit more focused and in control, especially when came pushing, and not force it as much as I did with my son. And, you know, the clock is ticking, and then I was having like so many contractions in the last weeks. And I only ended up getting a cervical check, I think at like 41. And it's funny because I remember I went to the gym. I was able to like work out throughout my pregnancy. And I was at 39 weeks roughly. And I did a workout, which ended up being my last one because then I was kind of like done. This lady comes up to me, oh, you do? And I'm like, oh, like next week, any day now. And she's like, oh, dilated, are you? And I was like, hi, stranger. I don't know, actually. And she's like, how could you not know how dilated you are? And I was like, doesn't matter. And then it was just like, it's just funny the way.
Well, what does it even do to know that you're 1 centimeter dilated that whole week? Do you know what I mean? Like, what does it even do?
Nothing.
Okay.
No.
But it's just everyone's been programmed that birth should be this way, you know,
and these are the protocols.
On your due date. Are you going to start taking what do they tell you to do?
You know, but somebody said something so interesting. Her and her friend were pregnant, but she got pregnant first. But then her friend gave birth first. And then she's like, so my friend's child is older than mine, but I was pregnant first.
Well, that's me.
Isn't that crazy?
And Aisha.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So like with the 40-week number?
Yeah.
I had a friend.
She found out she was pregnant 3 weeks after me.
I have a friend who was due, I think, like less than 10 days after me, and she ended up having her baby before me.
And then that child is considered older.
Too. So many people like that are due around, they all had their baby, and I was like, oh my God, when is it my turn?
Yeah.
Ended up having, that's it, a check around 41, and my cervix was in like a funnel shape, which I didn't realize it could dilate, not just like straight. So it was quite closed at the top, but like 3, if I'm not mistaken, like 2-3 centimeters at the bottom. At 41, like I was like, okay, let's try to do a sweep if we can, to try to get things going. And they actually couldn't at that time.
Oh, wow.
Then I went for my stress test for the baby. I think I was 41 plus 2. At that point, you know, with the hospital, they'll do like the ultrasound and the baby heart rate and checks. And she was looking great. They were pretty sure I had like a lot of fluid around in my belly. So it didn't help like get baby's head like against the cervix in like an optimal position. The doctor was super supportive. She's like, how are you feeling? Want to induce? Or, you know, she's like, you know, I can appreciate that you're really looking to have this like natural birth experience at the birthing center. Going to try to get this happen for you. And she's like, you know, do you want to book your induction? She's like, I'm not feeling like you need to, but like, how are you feeling?
Sales pitch.
Yeah. But then I was like, let's circle back at 42. And at 42, I was like, okay, if I get to 42, then we can talk and schedule something. So this was the Thursday, and she was just like, you know what you need? You need a vrai bon sweep. A vrai bon sweep. And I had like an appointment with my midwife after.
Yeah.
Got a sweep done. And I was doing all of the things. Walking, pump, acupuncture, you know, really trying. But I remember my doula kept saying to me, you know, your baby's going to be born on their birthday. Your baby comes when they're ready.
Oh, yeah.
And you can try all those things, but they will happen when it's time. And so that was the Thursday. I was having contractions kind of started and kind of stopped in the evening. That happened a few days in a row. So it was definitely like draining mentally. Friday, we did a bunch of errands. And that night I had a little bit of a meltdown. And like you hear some stories of like people who have like a big like cry sesh, like right before they go into labor. That's happened to me. And like freaking out a little of like, okay, am I doing the right thing, and waiting a little bit, you know, doubting yourself. And like,
right.
Even if I've done it twice before, you know, I had a moment of like, can I do this again? You know, where the head, your mindset gets in the way a little bit of like, you know, when you're overthinking things and like, It's always worse. The buildup and the apprehension is worse than when it actually happens.
Right.
And that was the case for me. And where like I would like nudge my daughter and she would like react, and then she wasn't moving as much. So I'm like freaking out. I called my midwife, calm me down, you know, have some orange juice and relax. And baby was fine. And had again, contractions kind of settled down at night. I had the primrose oil to try to help soften things. That we were like discussing maybe, you know, if we like try breaking the water, because there was like so much, still wasn't super comfortable doing like the midwife brew. I've heard of times where it just gives you like the
explosive diarrhea.
Yeah. Okay, I was like, what is this midwife brew?
More
so
than it being
oil and
what is this witchery?
There's castor oil in it, and I had tried it on my belly. It's part of one of the things like through my acupuncturist I had recommended, and I got like a skin reaction. So I was like, well, if my skin is reacting, I can't imagine ingesting it would be a good idea. So we had kind of floated the idea of taking my waters at that point because I really didn't want to go to the hospital to get induced. And at afternoon, contractions started picking up. And during dinner, I started to be like, okay, I'm needing to like pause and like concentrate a little bit through these. Yeah. My husband went to do like bedtime for the older two. So I went to my room, had my headphones on with the birth ball. And I was feeling like this was happening. This was the moment. Started to go like time my contractions at around 7:30 p.m. And, I crossed paths with my oldest daughter, and it was kind of like, we knew at that point, like, you know, things are happening, and like daddy's going to tuck you in, but like mommy and daddy are going to go have the baby. And, you know, she looked at me, she's like, good luck, mommy. And that was like super
Aww.
sweet. She made me like a drawing that I had against the back of the pool at the birthing center.
That's so sweet.
So that was super nice. And went in, and then he tucks them in. He comes to check on me at like 8:15, and he's like, you know, how's it going? And it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go. I was like, I'm good. I was trying to like get the pump going to try to, because that was my problem, is I was having contractions, but they weren't like productive. Baby wasn't in the best position. So, you know, I did some of the spinning babies positions, and then I went to hook up on the pump, the breast pump, and he's like, okay, let me go grab a bite. I haven't eaten yet, and then back and check on you. Literally 2 minutes later, my water breaks. I'm sitting like cross-legged in the bed. Good thing I had like a pad under me. And so I text him back. I was like, yeah, my water just broke. So call wife, doula. I also had a birth photographer for this experience. So that was really, really special.
Oh, wow. I regret not taking pictures. My husband's like, are you crazy?
I told you to video.
I'm like, I want to see.
Because you knew it was going to be your last.
I know. It's okay. I'll watch yours.
Okay. Yeah. No, she wants to catch my baby.
There you go. That's special. Wow.
So you had a photographer?
Yes. So that was really fun, especially just the reaction after, like my face, I quite expressive. So expressive. Yeah, so we text the midwife, and she's like, okay, like because we get contractions, we're continuing. Oh, she's like, this is your third, coming frequently enough. Like, let's meet in about an hour. And I remember Trista texted me like, hey, I'm here now. Feel free to come earlier, you know, third baby and all, wink, wink. So we got there around just after 9. I remember like, oh, finally I get to use the like women in labor elevator, birthing center. The energy is just like super positive and excited when you get there. And the room was all set up with the lights. So I opted for the room with the back.
I figured.
How things had gone the last couple of days. I also wanted to just get a check to see like where we were. I was just still confident. And then I would think I was at a 5. And I kept my headphones on. I was kind of standing, swaying in the bathroom. And quite quickly, I should say, it was picked up, started getting more and more intense. And then I was like, okay, let me try the tub to see. You know, an idea of a water birth, but I was a little open of like, you know, we'll see what happens. Maybe the room won't be available. I wasn't like dead set on it. It was super relieving, the pressure, like the sensation against my belly. My doula was doing like pressure points. But quickly I got pretty hot. Like it's much hotter than you would think. And then I was like, okay, this is too hot. Got out to the bathroom. And that's when I hit transition. Again, started bearing down. And I think the doula, the midwife was like, okay, Trista, come. Second midwife, it's time. I was like very vocal this time around. Baby was very, very big. I was feeling so much pressure. I even remember at one point, you know, my doula was doing pressure points. And then she was putting something pressure in the lower back. I was like, okay, no, that doesn't feel good, because the head was like super low at that point. I'm just like holding on to my husband's shoulders, his neck, and I'm like leaning against him. I was making so much noise in different positions because like I was feeling the urge to push. It was like definitely bearing down and definitely trying to push, but I felt like I needed to move to get baby to go down in the right position. So leaning forward on one knee and on all fours. And then at one point we kind of like, okay, let's check to see if there's a cervical lip again. You know, it's kind of my MO. Did have one again. So she again kind of moved it, and early next contraction I was crowning.
Crazy.
I was on all fours, and and the warm just helped me kind of stay calm in the moment. Felt baby's head. It's super like warm and like gooey. Anyway, and I remember being like, okay, like I got this. It's happening. It's soon. He was born just a few pushes later.
Wow.
Just after midnight. So she really wanted to be a St. Patty's baby because she was
right on St. Patrick's Day?
Yeah, just after midnight on St. Patrick's Day. So 12 days late officially. And she came out super calm at first. Super like very wide awake, and even to this day she's like super alert. And then she cried after, definitely. But yeah, it's such a special like. So they handed her to me just because of how I was positioned, and then just the whole like skin to skin. Again, it's been said so many times. The instant the baby is out, the relief is instant.
It's incredible.
Incredible. And like the feeling you get, I would give birth 10 times over for that feeling, that like magical moment, like right after. Whew.
And did you keep your placenta in for a long time?
I was bleeding quite a bit, so they did give me Tosin to try to help that go. I don't remember exactly. I'd have to go look at the notes because they give you the notes after, right?
Yeah,
I remember seeing yours.
It wasn't that long. I know I only cut the cord like a good hour after. So for this one, it was me that cut the cord. So that was special also. So she, held on to me. She was 10 pounds, 8 ounces.
Ooh, big girl.
Big girl. Yeah. She was, my least amount of damage. Third baby helps, of course. But I think just the way the midwife was there to support me and kind of breathe through those pushes. But
it's that hot compress.
Yeah, that too.
It's golden.
Yeah. She, they were concerned because apparently when the baby started crowning, my doula husband and I think the backup midwife like looked at each other like, whoo, this is a big head. And it was definitely above average. But yeah, she came out and yeah, just super special. And they kind of just let you be. They give you the fruit and nut and cheese tray that's so good with a nice big glass of juice, and they really like set you up and they like honor your space. You're not interrupted. Obviously they do the check on the baby, but like it was well after an hour that they weighed her or did their newborn checkup and whatnot. Like we slept, we rested, really just kind of leave you be. Very different from like the hospital setting where they're checking on you multiple times. I love the memes of like the "Hey mama."
I know. Yeah,
hey,
when they walk in.
Sorry. Yeah, no. I remember my husband like slept and he's like, nobody came, eh? And he like really loved the experience. He was supportive of me giving birth there. He was like, even after, he was like, wow, this is really special. This is really special. And
treating birth sacred like it should be.
Exactly. Instead of a medical procedure.
Exactly.
That it's become.
There's obviously a time and place for modern medicine, but I think itself birth is a natural process, right? And I think there's so much getting caught up in like the protocols or the timelines, and like birth is natural first and foremost.
Yeah, we always say how they've just medicalized the whole experience, and sadly, not everyone gets to experience what you have. Even though you had 3 natural births, the optimal situation would be your third, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. Yeah.
Like if you had to go back and do all of them, which version of it would you like?
Definitely my third, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not only like the birth itself, but like the prenatal care, the postpartum, where they come to my house. They came to my house. So I ended up staying. She was born right after midnight, and I stayed until like 4 or 5 p.m. that night just to kind of settle. And they came the next day.
Soak it in. Yeah, and soak it in, because you have 2 kids at home, and you're gonna go home. It's gonna be chaotic, but
exactly, yeah.
Soak in those few moments, yeah.
Definitely. And they come like day 1 and 3 or 3 and 5. Anyway, I come a couple times to visit you, and then the postpartum care, they're on call until 6 weeks. If you have any questions, concerns, or texted midwife for something when baby was a couple days old. It's definitely personal.
So they are the village that people talk about.
Yes, indeed. Well, I mean, just think about like the clinic where you and I went originally. Just getting a appointment with the doctor. Can you even get an appointment with those receptionists and how?
No, you have to reach out through email.
And then with a midwife, you literally have her by text.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Any question, I would send pictures.
Did I even write a complaint the last time?
Yes,
with my whole experience.
Yeah, it was terrible. But yeah, only if we can only inspire a few more moms to, do it this way.
Well, definitely. I'm inspired by Ali and by you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. No, it's that's it. Just like informing yourself, and such an automatic. It's funny when I told people that I was being followed at the birthing center by a midwife.
What was the reaction?
Positive, actually, more positive than I thought. Honestly, expecting a few of like, oh no, not at the hospital. I was like, no. And it's funny because then one person was like, oh wow, like a little bit of shock with the midwife. And I was like, more shocked at the fact that it's with a midwife or that I don't have the option for an epidural. And it's the epidural that surprises people most of the time.
Yeah.
Such a like default mindset to an automatum or yeah.
Yeah. No, we totally get it.
Yeah.
I mean, you get 1 hour prenatal visits. You get to give birth in a beautiful suite with dim lights and such care and love. Like, these midwives are so passionate. It's like written all over their face. Like, I love birth,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to take care of you and they want to bring life into this world. And then the postpartum care is, I mean, you can't even compare it to anything. Like you said, they come to your house, they do everything. So you have all of these benefits. And then, so you're telling someone this and they're like, wow, that's amazing. Oh, but can you get an epidural? No, I could never do that. It's incredible.
I don't know whether we'll keep this in here, but like and I don't even want to make it sad, but back in November, I had a miscarriage, but I had the pleasure of having at least one appointment with the midwife. And I remember walking in and first of all being like, is this normal? That it's like this zen and like, I'm just not used to it. But I remember even when I was experiencing, because it was over like a 3-week period of not knowing if it was viable or not. And she would call me and she gave me her number so that I could still call and speak with her and just talk to her about what's going on. They called to check up on me even after it happened.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I sorry to hear that. I also had one before my third. I had an early miscarriage. And they were just like very just gentle about it, It was always in the back of my mind, especially with that pregnancy. And there was a part of me that's like, until I have that baby on my chest, like there's always the fear of like the unknown and thing going wrong, Yeah, definitely. Again, leading with empathy.
No, they were just so supportive. I mean, what a segue. But normally when we end the podcast, we like to ask our guest what their favorite mommy product is. I don't know if you've heard in our podcast, but we like to ask our guests what their favorite mommy product.
Yeah, I thought about it.
And the favorite baby product kind of got you through your times.
I would definitely say a carrier, especially having more than one. Carrier was a game changer for the third too. But yeah, I really loved like the wrap carriers in the early weeks, and even to this day, my daughter's in it fully daily to get things done, and a lot of carrier naps in the beginning. I'm going to Costco on Friday morning. I pop her in the carrier, get things done. Nice. It's definitely super practical for me. I used the wild bird one I got before this baby, so I love that one. Because it's like a bit of a hybrid. Like it's linen. It's not too like stiff. And for mom product, surprisingly, what was a game changer for me, especially for the early weeks, was like a reading pillow. That
a reading pillow?
Like for nursing, for like my overnight feeds, and I would leave it in the bed or have it on the side. It's like with the fluffy ones with like the kind of armrests on the side. That has been super comfy for me for like nursing. Cool. I also have like a breastfeeding pillow.
But I've never heard of a reading pillow. Can you send us a photo of that?
Yeah, send us a link, please.
Okay, wonderful.
That was super. And to this day, like now it's on the couch because I not in my room anymore, so she's right next door, so I have the nursing chair in her room, but yeah, definitely send it to you. Super cozy, and it'll last long, so
yeah, for sure.
Well,
yeah,
thank you so much, Stephanie, for sharing the
oh my god, it's my pleasure.
beautiful births you had.
Thank you. Definitely.
That was
Thank
another
you.
real and raw conversation.
See you
Thank
next
you.
time.